Good evening, everybody. We're glad you're here tonight. Um, we're going to try to finish off Mark 5 tonight and then maybe touch a little bit on Daniel and some other stuff. We're not sure exactly where God's going to take us with this tonight. We're just going to talk about some things and see what happens.
When you sign up with Jesus, we're just along for the ride, anyways. We don't know where, we know the destination, we just don't know the route to get there.
It's a curvy road, dirt road, gravel road.
And sometimes it's got some potholes in it, let me tell you.
If they're anything like they have around here, you're going to fall in them.
You can fit a Volkswagen in them.
Maybe a semi.
And that's what aggravates me about our local Main Street multi-million-dollar project. Had traffic screwed up for 5 years,
And it still floods.
And still rough as crap. It's just I've been on railroad tracks that were smoother.
That kind of reminds me of what was that? Cars when Mater has to pave the road.
Been a long time.
Mater has to go to that small town because he screwed the road up, and they made him pay.
Right.
And it was a rough road when he got done.
Well, I can't see Mater doing much anything of quality anyway.
No, horsepower, just
because his pavers got these big moles on them.
Yeah. So the last part of Daniel, Mark 5 talks about his guy's daughter. Jarius.
Where was that? Mark 5.
Mark 5.
It's been a little while.
21.
Was it Jarius's daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. There's the lady with the touching. Jarius was I guess like their local rabbi, I guess the local pastor, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And his daughter had died.
Yeah.
And while Jesus was in town, he came and got Jesus. And when they showed up there at Jarius's house, the other church members, it's like, why are you wasting his time? She's dead. And of course, that stuff doesn't matter to Jesus.
No.
So, it's, it was one of them things where, like I said, he commands the storms, and even, what would be a good way to put this? Even life obeys. And that's a...
Kind of reminds me of when you're going fishing in a boat and the water starts going erratic, and and then you have God beside you, like, that ain't nothing.
Yeah, and I get tickled at them jokes, where it'll be like Jesus and Moses are going fishing or golfing or whatever, and Moses doesn't care if he hits it in the water hole because he just splits the water anyways.
Something's going to happen regardless when it comes to Moses.
Right. But no, in this particular story, let's see. Yeah, Mark 5, getting down to verse 39, he entered the facility there, and he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and crying? The child has not died, but is asleep." And they began laughing at him. And I'm not going to say that Jesus was wrong, but people generally know when somebody was dead.
Right.
It's that's one of the big arguments about the crucifixion story is the Muslims will say, well, Jesus merely fainted. He never died on the cross. I'm like, you don't know a lot about Roman history, do you? When they killed you for good. They were professional killers, but getting back to it, death has no authority over Christ. It's the other way around. If Jesus says, hey, the child isn't dead, then the child isn't dead. It really is that simple.
Then he tells it not to tell anybody.
if a person went through the Gospels and listed out every miracle that Jesus did on a more individual basis, let's not talk about the feeding the 5,000,
Yeah.
and let's even rule out the times where he does it when there's not necessarily a multitude, but just a crowd. It's 50-50 whether he tells them, it's like, hey, keep this to yourself or go tell everybody. But what seems to be 100% is regardless of what Jesus says, they all go and tell everybody.
Right.
And the reason that we are getting into this is a lot of what we have discussed in various episodes is faith. Christ is the cornerstone, but I would go as far as to say that faith is the mortar that holds it all together.
Right.
But a lot of what we've discussed is our faith. And what we're kind of leaning into in this episode is the faith of your friends, of your circle, of those around you, be it family, friends, co-workers, whatever. The people that are around you, their faith makes a difference, So with this particular one, and let's just back up to, the last bit we covered on the last episode, same chapter, Mark 5, this lady with the issue of blood, what was it, 12 years, 13 years she suffered with this, something like that?
Yeah.
And she didn't ask permission. She didn't go to Jesus and ask to be healed. She didn't even demand it. She knew in her heart of hearts, if I can just touch the hem of his robe, I will be healed. She had a faith that would shame us. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she done. She touched Jesus and she was healed. He never said a word. He didn't know it, He turned around and was like, who touched me? This was not a, I don't want to take any, I don't even know how to word it. I don't want to take any glory from Jesus, but this is not an instance where he set out to heal this lady. He was unaware. It was her faith that healed her,
Right.
if that makes sense. She knew who to go to. She knew the source, which again has most of us shamed. But that's the kind of faith we should strive to have. But today, we're going into, Jarius's daughter. Well, she was, shall we say, believed to be dead. They thought she was dead. So obviously she didn't come to seek Jesus' healing. Somebody went on her behalf. Jarius had heard that Jesus could work miracles, and let's face it, they were not in the information age where text messages were flying rampant and all that. And so information traveled slowly.
Right.
But they had still heard of Jesus and that he was working miracles. So when he came into town, hey, I'm going to go get this guy because I've got an emergency. And that's exactly what they did. But branching off of that, kind of moving out of the Mark 5, we've all heard the story of, forgive me, if part of this is memory and part of this I'm sidetracked.
And I'm trying to adjust the volume as we go.
Right. Stop playing with things.
Well, I'm being told to.
We've all heard the story about where that gentleman was, he was paralyzed and Jesus was speaking, and they kind of had him in a little building or a little hut or whatever. And the press of the crowd was so thick that they couldn't get anybody, you couldn't get to Jesus. So they tore open the roof of the hut and lowered this guy in on his mat.
Right.
That's the kind of friends we need, and let's face it, here in Western Kentucky, we all already have friends that will go and do vandalism on our behalf. Let's face it, we do. But we need the kind of friends with the kind of faith that will carry us to deliverance. If that, is that making any sense at all?
Yeah.
It's we need more than good friends. We need friends with a faith that will sustain us. There is another aspect. It is in Luke chapter 7. There was a centurion, and I want to say that is probably like a step down from a Roman general, but I'm not keen on all their ranks and whatnot. But my understanding is a centurion is not your average peon. He's not cannon fodder.
Right.
He, according to Luke, he had a slave that was sick and dying. The centurion sent somebody, be it servants or whatever, out to find Jesus, to heal his servant, And they went, they found Jesus, and they brought him back. And as Jesus entered, he's, well, let me go see the person, And the centurion, like he had already heard of Jesus. He said, I've already troubled you enough. You don't even have to go up and see him. All you have to do is say the word, and I know that he will be healed. And, he goes on to explain, and I know I'm butchering this, something fierce, but he went on to explain, like, I'm a man of position. I understand how authority and command works, and I recognize it in you. He said, you don't have to go up there. All you have to do is give the command, and I know that it will be done.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. Jesus gave the command, and the slave, the servant, whatever the individual was healed. That's the kind of faith we need our friends to have, if that makes sense. And while that sounds oddly self-serving, let's flip that around. We need to be that kind of friend. Does that make sense? Because it's kind of a, how would you word it? I'm struggling with my phonics. Personally, I blame the Kentucky accent, but
Kentucky phonics.
Hooked on phonics worked for me. Obviously. But no, it's one of them things where, like it just sounds bad to say, hey, you need friends with this kind of faith. And it reminds me, see, I've gone on social media and had personal discussions. I write out stuff as though I'm speaking to people, and the same three people say that's great. But it kind of reminds me of a relationship aspect. It is nothing out of the ordinary, male or female. I'm actually bashing both of us. So, don't take it personal. It is nothing out of the ordinary to hear, I'm not good enough for you, or you're too good for me, or whatever the case may be. So we're going to part company. And people make that out like that is a noble decision. It's not. Be the person.
Right.
When you break down what love is sacrificial. It is service. It's not to gain, if that makes sense.
Is love feeling, or is love, how's that question go?
Love is a choice.
Yes.
I was discussing this with our mutual friend from school the other day.
Okay.
A lot of people think that love is that feeling, that butterflies and all that ecstaticness and whatever. And honestly, it's not. Now, you can have those years down the line, unless you're a relative of mine. I don't know, because most of my relatives have not made it years down the line. I have to go back to my grandparents' generation. But all that being said, and I can't even knock them because I've never been married. So, like, how do I judge? But that early offset of feelings and endorphins, that can be infatuation, that could even be lust. There are a lot of things that is, but the best way I know to explain it is love kicks in when that wears off.
Yep.
Love is that everyday waking up and looking at that person and saying, you're my person. And I choose you for better or worse, even when you annoy the piss out of me. Like, you are my person. What was that line they used in Game of Thrones? I am yours and you are mine.
Yep.
That's what the choice looks like.
That's a good show.
I love the story. They could cut about 99.5% of the porn out of it,
right,
and not hurt the story. There are a few little bits that I would say is contextual, but the majority of it, it's just there's too much of it in there for my taste.
I agree.
But I love the story in and of itself. I love that medieval stuff. I'm real big into Celtic heritage.
I got upset when they killed the puppies.
Yeah.
I understand why, but still.
Yeah. I think the one that bothered me the most, now Ghost made it.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
Ghost made it. Now, when they beheaded Robs, you see how easily we get sidetracked? You look, Christmas tinsel and something shiny. Yeah. What was that Up? Where you had the Rottweilers that could talk and squirrel.
Is either Up or Life of Pets, Pet Story or whatever story.
Something like that. Yeah, Pet's Life.
Yeah, something like that. That big old furry dog.
Yeah. Either way,
we were able to talk about it the other day.
Yeah, I think the one that bothered me the most was I understand when Eddard had to kill Nymeria. Is that right? No, Lady. It was Sansa's dog.
Yeah.
I understood that. And I know it's just a fictional story, but I respect the character for doing it himself. There's honor in what he did. Not that I like it, but now the one that I think bothered me the most, it was Nymeria. Arya's.
Yeah.
Like I said, Ghost made it.
I'm going to watch it, refresh my memory.
Well, take your blinders with you. I'm a firm believer that if you've made it through season 4, you've seen most of the boobies in the English Isle. Because there can't be that many more women there. I'm sorry. But
anyways,
that being said, how did we get on Game of Thrones?
I forgot.
Oh yeah, I am yours and you are mine. Love is what kicks in when the feelings, like it is a choice. And what I argue with people, and this is where I kind of pick on women a little bit, because men look at things differently. I'm not saying we're better, we're different. But a lot of people will say, well, you can't choose who you love. Horse poop. Look at your checklist. And that's why I pick on women, because we all know they have a checklist. Every person that's not on that checklist is somebody that you've chosen not to love, period. It's that simple. Every person, now don't get me wrong, you can love people, brotherly love, familial love. It doesn't have to be romantic love. But just because of the subject matter, every person that's not on your checklist, every person that, asked for your number and you give them a false number, every person that you've done that to is somebody you chose not to love. Every person you've broke up with is somebody you've chosen not to love anymore, And I know we don't like hearing that in the day of don't settle and put your happiness first and blah, blah, blah. And look around. The divorce rate is 50-50.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to blame women or blame men. We all suck. Okay. That's where I'm at.
We're human.
The dating pool has been peed in,
yes,
period. It's terrible.
Little
and
beverages.
Yes, I mean, there's floaters in there.
Yeah.
I have heard somebody say once before, like dating over 40 is like going to a yard sale and trying to find the least abused thing that doesn't smell too bad. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what it's like for the 20-year-olds. But anybody who pays attention. Now, a lot of people, and we see them on social media, they can't remember the last information they got. Maybe it was the last time they watched Rachel Maddow, but they don't remember what Rachel said the previous episode.
Right.
And okay, so I'm picking on Rachel a little bit, but either way, the thing about it is some of us can remember and we pay attention. And the entire concept of dating, the games, Z with Z, games, it's not the same now as it was when we were in school, which is not the same when our parents were in school. Now, again, I'm not going to point fingers and place blame, but it's not improving. When we look at society as a whole, yes, you are going to have some people that say, well, this aspect is an improvement. Maybe, but overall, progress isn't always progress when you go backwards, and we are at a time now where, what's a good way to say it? There's subscription prostitution.
I always have a fear of, like I told the boys, you start dating a girl, make sure she has the original plumbing and she is actually a girl.
Now that is that was not a concern when we were in school. And again, I'm not saying this to bash anybody. No. I'm not hating. There were people that were homosexual when we were in school. Yep. And some of them were pretty open about it, and some of them kept it to themselves. But the trans movement.
Some of it took dating a girl before to realize they were gay. I know that person. You know him too, if I say his name.
Yeah, I'm leaving it alone. But that aspect was not a thing. Now, I know an individual that was going dating, and the individual was our age. They was going dating. And of course, with the Snapchat filters and all that now, you don't know that what you see is what you're going to see. Yeah. And the individual showed up, and it was a trans individual. Ouch. And as soon as they seen each other, I'm like, hey, you're not what your picture said. And the individual's like, okay, this is who I am. I think that's the only reason that the individual didn't get the crap beat out of them for lying.
Right.
Okay. Now, and I'm not saying to hate on the individual. That's deceptive.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know how girls deal with that. I don't know how you if you go on social media, you don't like being lied to. Okay. But men take that personally, and we're apt to get violent about it. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's right. That's how we are. But when the individual, the way I understood the story, the individual, hey, this is who I am, and I didn't know if you was all right with that, but you don't throw that information out too soon. He's like, I respect where you're coming from. I appreciate you fessing up. This ain't going to work, but I respect that you manned up and, confessed where you're at. I dare say they're not friends. I think they cut ties right there, and, no harm, no foul. But, that was not a worry when we were in school,
no.
Or shortly thereafter. That's been a, I don't want to say relatively new thing, but a much more widespread phenomenon.
More open.
much more and much more common.
Yeah.
And
I always tell our friends and people I talk to, they see my wife and they see me. I mean, my wife, and it's how you said you can't pick who you love, that sort of thing.
right.
I always tell people, my wife went to the homeless shelter and she looked at me and said, "I want that one." I wasn't actually in a homeless shelter, but you get the drift of it.
There is a reel going around, and I wish I could pull it up and like hold it up here. And like I said, I'm not trying to hate on the women at all. I cannot speak from y'all's point of view. I simply don't know.
Right.
I'm not saying that men are perfect by any means.
No.
A lot of men have gone severely downhill. I'm not. I do have to take men's part because I'm on that team.
I grew a belly and I walk funny now, and I'm shorter than I was before.
How did you get shorter?
I don't know.
But, there's this reel where this, what's it called? A stitch when one person starts it and then somebody else chimes in? Skit. Okay. So some lady got on there and asked, where are all the good men at? And this guy chimed in there. He's like, you're going to have to go dumpster diving. He said, you're going to find, he's like, you will find good men on the island of misfit boyfriends, all the discards that were thrown away. And I've made comments to the ladies about this. I'm like, y'all know you're cutting your own throats on this.
Yeah.
I said, you keep asking where all the good men are. At the same time, you say all men are the same. You have 90% of the women going after the same 10% of men. Most women will not date a man that another woman isn't interested in, because they think psychologically that she's already done the homework, and if she's with them, then he's good.
Okay.
All right. So they think like, hey, he's with somebody, he passes the background check. You wonder why all men are the same? Because y'all are dating the same damn men.
Yeah.
Period. So you're going to have to go to the island of misfit boyfriends, the discards, the rejects, the ones that nobody else wanted. And we're like dogs, like you go to the pound and you will get the best dog. But a lot of you ladies are out there trying to get that pedigree. Mm-hmm. Have you ever owned a pedigree dog?
They're expensive.
And they're a pain in the butt. Yes. Like they come with problems.
Yeah.
That comes with the pedigree. You need to go get the mutt. Go get the mutt. He will be the best dog you ever had. And men are the same way. And the surprising thing is, we're actually very simple creatures, and a lot of women, I don't think, understand this. We are very simple creatures, Now, every household's different and every man's different, but we're not that complicated. But you're not going to figure us out with women thought, because we don't think like y'all do.
No.
Does that make any sense at all? Like you can't go through woman rationality. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory manner. We think differently.
Yeah.
You're not going to figure out a man the same way that you would figure out a woman, because we don't think like that.
No.
Period. End of discussion. So back on topic, if I can do that.
He told them not to tell anybody.
Well, I've moved on from there.
Okay.
Going into Luke 7, that's where they tore open the roof and they lowered a guy in there.
That's right.
Okay. And that's, I know I got sidetracked on the relationship aspect, and where I was going with that is on the relationship thing, because I don't think I said this before. We've seen the, you're too good for me or whatever, so I'm going to part company. If you want to do something noble, be that person.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's noble. We look at that situation and we're, well, they're too good for me, or I'm not good enough. And we think it is a noble decision. And we convince ourselves that that is self-sacrifice. Does that make sense?
Yes.
and that is noble. That's not self-sacrifice. You didn't sacrifice yourself. You sacrificed the relationship. You sacrificed the other person.
Yeah.
If you're going to self-sacrifice, become that person. If you don't feel like you're good enough, become good enough. That's self-sacrifice.
Yep.
When you remove yourself from the situation, you're sacrificing the relationship. You're sacrificing the potential that was there. You're not sacrificing yourself because you have refused to step up to the plate. Make sense?
Yeah.
And like I said, that is a both genders thing. Like, I don't care what kind of plumbing you have. If you're guilty of this, that's not noble.
And God can convict you of it. It's between you and him.
I'm convicting him of, I'm just pointing that out, and before some smart aleck gets on here, who hurt you? I did. Okay? I did. Anytime I've been hurt, I allowed it to take place. I'm not blaming anybody but myself. So moving on, because like I said, we'll go ahead and knock that argument off the table before we get there.
Yep.
Did you know that there was another aspect where Jesus arose somebody from the dead? We know about like Jarius's daughter.
Yeah.
We know about Lazarus.
Right.
I ran across this earlier, and I've read this before, and it never clicked. Luke 7. Let's see, where are we at? Scroll down to verse 11. Forgive my reading skills. And it happened that soon afterwards, and this was soon after he healed the centurion's servant, slave, whatever. And it happened that soon afterwards he went to a city called Nain, probably pronounced differently in Hebrew, I'm sure. And his disciples were going along with him, accompanied by a large crowd. Now, as he approached the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. And a sizable crowd from the city was with her. Verse 13, and when the Lord saw her, he felt compassion for her and said to her, do not cry. And he came up and touched the coffin, and the bearers came to a halt. And he said, young man, I say to you, arise. And the dead man sat up and began to speak.
I remember that. I never thought of it that way.
No, for some reason, that one gets glossed over completely. Yeah. And this is another instance where that one was, Jesus took that one upon himself.
Yeah.
Like nobody came to him. Well, it looks like Abel's here paying attention. And again, oh, she's fine now. Well, that's good. I don't know what we're talking about, but I hope you do.
I have no idea.
I wonder if it's just showing up on mine instead of yours. But either way, squirrel. That one gets glossed over, but there are instances where people came to Jesus to be healed, to be delivered, to be saved, whatever the case may be. There are other instances where it was not the individual in and of themselves that approached Jesus. People came to Jesus on somebody else's behalf.
Right.
All right. Now, if you have not shut out everything that could be considered religious, especially everything that could be considered Christianity, we have heard the term intercession. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
You can pray on somebody else's behalf. Most of us wouldn't be here if not for a mother, grandmother, aunt. Somebody has prayed for us to straighten up and pull our heads out of our hind end.
Especially grandma.
Usually grandmas, yes. It might be everybody in the family, right. But your faith can make a difference in somebody else's life. And look at the people who have been affected since Charlie Kirk's demise, assassination. You're welcome.
You can say it, I can't.
Well, some words I can,
I can't
you
put
know.
H in there somewhere.
Some words I can speak all right, and there's other ones, you know, I more chew up and spit
It's
out.
like I can't say aluminum.
Just don't say it like the Brits do.
What was the other one? Aluminum and I can't remember. That's my wife. She's always picking on me about it.
I couldn't imagine that at
No,
all.
but yeah, I can't.
You know.
Assassin. There's an H in there somewhere. And
Yeah.
I have all my teeth, so I don't know what.
That might be the problem.
Like my tongue is lazy on that word. Like it did aluminum in them.
But there are a few instances where Jesus takes it upon himself. You know, like nobody came to him. He just, hey, here you go. And, you know, like, what a God we serve.
Right. Amen.
You know, like I said, it's not simply that we can go to God and be healed, be delivered, be set free. And let's not forget, be saved.
Yes.
But if you troll through the Gospels, the centurion was not Hebrew.
No.
He was not Jewish. He was Greek. But he knew that Jesus could do this. He wasn't even a believer. I mean, he believed in what Jesus could do, but he didn't believe in Jesus in and of himself, if that makes sense. Right. Wow. You know, like, what would it be if Jesus, hey, I'm praying and I need healings. Like, you know, you haven't tithed in a week. Yeah. That's not the Jesus we serve.
No.
You know, that even that even non-believers can come.
Yeah.
And where I started to go before we got on the grammar is look at the number of people since Charlie Kirk's assassination that have either returned to their faith or, you know, maybe they weren't believers, but now they're seriously considering, you know, like I've been seeing reel after reel that
that friend of ours from school. I mean,
well, that individual.
I don't know that that's what did it, but
no, but the time frame. I think with that situation, the individual told me that they have felt the gnawing for some time.
Yeah,
and she used to have faith,
yeah.
But through one thing and then another,
yeah.
I get it. And it wasn't. Yeah, we've spoke about it, and it, you know, and I'm not trying to tell her a story, but it wasn't specifically that she lost faith. She got mad.
Yeah.
You know, and I told her, I was like, do not feel like the Lone Ranger. I said, I have been pissed at God.
Yes.
You know, yelling, screaming, and I mean like mad crying, you know. And yeah, I get it. I just admitted that.
Like chokehold.
Yes, like mad, you know. And is it wrong? Yes and no.
I think it's how you do it, how you handle the situation.
Well, when you look at the book of Job,
yeah,
Job was mad.
He was.
And God never faulted him for being mad. If I remember the tail end of Job correctly, the only real fault that God put on Job is Job demanded answers from a position of authority, as though God owed him answers. And that's where Job crossed the line. Job being mad at God was not crossing the line. God made us in his image. God gets angry in and of himself, not at himself, but God gets angry. If he didn't, there would be no such thing as God's wrath. Okay.
Flipping tables.
Well, I'm talking Old Testament wrath.
Yeah.
But even Jesus, you know, I get so tickled, and well, I used to get tickled. Now it kind of gets gets a little sand in my craw. Even atheists. Well, aren't you supposed to love everybody and be nice? Have you read the Gospels? We love healing Jesus, praising Jesus, singing Jesus, calming the storm Jesus, feeding the masses Jesus. We love that Jesus. Tell me about chasing with whips and flipping tables Jesus.
Yeah.
Tell me about you brood of vipers, hypocrites Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Being mad or getting angry is not wrong if it is a righteous anger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have to be mad about the right things. Church I used to go to, oh God, 20 years ago, we had a fill-in pastor for, I don't know if ours was sick or vacation or whatever. We had a fill-in pastor. And I knew the guy. I just never knew he was a pastor. And he gave a sermon, and the whole key to his sermon was, you need to get mad about sin.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't keep shrugging it off and, you know, this and that. He's like, you need to get mad about it. And when you start comparing that back towards scripture, you should.
Yeah.
We should, you know. When he first started, you know, I'm sitting there scratching my head like, where in the crap is he going with this? Because I mean, we was in a down home Southern Baptist. People don't even talk loud.
No.
You know, I mean, this was old school Southern Baptist. You sat down and you shut up, and maybe you said amen if the pastor asked. Other than that, you didn't even cough real loud. And then this fill-in pastor's like beating the crap out of the pulpit. And like I was waiting for him to do a shock and awe and body slam it, you know. And he's like, you got to get mad, you know. And I'm like, okay, I think he's got demons, you know. Right. I always get tickled about that. What was it, Rodney Carrington? Oh, I loved your sermon. You know, of course, the pastor knew he slept through it. Well, which part? Oh, you know, about God's good and the devil's an ass. And, you know, I'm like, well, he's not wrong.
No.
You know?
I mean,
when you break it down, God is good and the devil is an ass. You know,
ideal points about it.
Yeah. You know, I just never heard it worded like that. You know, yeah, God's good and the devil is being an ass. You know, and you say that to the pastor, you know. But, you know, like I said, this is how easily I'm distracted. We have these instances where, you know, God shows us mercy or compassion or whatnot because we came to him. There are other instances where somebody else can come to him on our behalf. And let's get the footnote. They don't always have to be a believer. That does help, you know, because if you don't know who you're praying to, you need to sort that out.
Right.
But that's a different sermon. But then there are other times, you know, God can choose to bless us whether we want it or not. He can choose to heal us if we don't ask for it. God's going to do what God decides to do, and he doesn't need our permission for it.
No.
And, you know, I don't know if, I know a lot of people, they will even argue about that. Like God doesn't do anything. You know, I've heard.
You woke up this morning, you did something.
I have heard people argue, you know, especially when we start talking about, you know, the aspect of the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. Well, God won't just take you over, you know, like the Holy Spirit is a gentleman. You have to allow it. You have to give permission. And I'm like, no. When the guards came to arrest Jesus and they asked, which one of you is Jesus? When he said, I am, they fell over as dead.
Yep.
the power, the authority of his statement. And let's not forget the statement of I am, what that actually means. But the force of his answer, they fell over as dead. They didn't ask for that.
No.
They weren't believers. So it's not that, like, no, I don't think God or the Holy Spirit is some people possessing boogeyman that's going to turn you into Bruce Almighty, and you're in front of the camera and they're like, blah, 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 blah. No, you're not going to do that.
No.
But do you always have a choice in the matter? I used to date this girl, and when she was up on stage, she's like, half the time I open my mouth, I don't know what I'm fixing to say. It's I'm like, then if the Spirit's talking, let him talk.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the biggest killers. Now don't get me wrong, it has to be genuine.
Right.
And Paul does iron out certain aspects of like speaking in tongues. You can't have the whole room speaking in tongues at the same time and no interpreter, blah, blah, blah. It's different if you're praying in tongues. But as far as like everybody speaking, like there's actually rules for that.
It's in the Bible.
Yes. But
we've had a conversation with that, my wife and I, and several others.
Yeah, there are those that will say that such things don't happen anymore. That was only a gift for like the disciples. I've actually heard that argument used. Well, that was only for the disciples. I'm like, well, tell me about Paul.
Yep.
Because Paul wasn't a disciple.
No.
He wasn't one of the 12. So without going into a whole lot there, I honestly think that is one of the biggest problems in organized religion. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is when we do it. This is how we say it. And they've got the whole of the sermon stuffed in a box with these neat little flags and guidelines on there. And any deviation, and let's just say that let's just be real. Let's say that it is actually of the Spirit, like not somebody's being a pain in the butt, not some kid screaming and it threw things off a little bit. But let's say the Holy Spirit actually said, well, we're going to do this song another 3 minutes, and it throws your, sermon time off. There are churches that would shut that down because it doesn't fit their nice little box.
No.
And they will refer to, well, God is God is all about order. He is. He just never said he had to follow yours. That's the part that gets left out. The Holy Spirit does not have to agree with my terms and conditions. Now again, he doesn't go around like some boogeyman possessing people. But there's a story that I've run across, and actually I'm going to skip that one. Staying back more on topic, when we're dealing with faith, we need to have that kind of faith. And the downside is, how does faith get built?
Trust. Repetitive learning, reading, spending time with God, reading the Bible.
But you also have to be aware.
Right, and watching our podcast. We can teach you about faith.
Yeah.
You have faith in that car going to take you to work every day. Why not have faith in God keeping you alive?
Well, that is, like we discussed, probably in one of the first one or two episodes, we never doubt that the electric bill is going to show up.
Right.
We honestly, we have more faith in the electric bill showing up, and it generally being more than we want to pay.
Yeah.
Than we do that God will deliver us.
West Kentucky would call saying, "Hey, you haven't paid your bill yet."
Right. We have more faith, You know, like what are the two guarantees or certainties? Death and taxes.
Yes.
You know, we have more faith in that than we do in the Almighty.
Yeah.
We should be ashamed of ourselves. And I'm not trying to shame people, but you're not going to get into a position of, shall we say, spiritual victory or authority if you have more faith in the electric company than you do in your creator. Yeah. You know, but like you said, how do we build faith? Well, you have to spend time in the Word, but you also have to be conscientious. I prayed about this, and this is what God did. You can't say, I prayed about this, and then, well, this happened, but, you know, like it was a 1 in 10,000 chance, and every time your number comes around, you know, like if God does something for you, give him the glory.
Yeah, amen.
Period. Don't play a numbers game, you know, because that's where a lot of the world's at today.
Well, you said something about that, giving God the glory. You know, when God called me to do his podcast, you know, we had to have faith that he knew what he was doing, especially when I contacted you about it.
Right.
And this was mentioned in like a first or second episode, whatever. It, you know, we had missed what twice.
Something like that.
Because we're sick, and then we had an church event that we went to.
Right.
So we still got the message from God. But the point is, we're here every time and God's providing for us.
Yeah.
And because we have faith in it. We have faith that we're going to reach somebody. And, you know, something was said to me, or not really said to me, through my mind talking to God, you know, we're not looking for followers to follow our page and follow us. We're looking for followers to follow God.
Well, you know, I don't remember where it's at in the New Testament, but Paul makes a statement where, and he's writing a letter, and you know, most of Paul's letters are really more of a butt chewing.
Oh,
did you notice that?
Yeah.
You know, now some of them he's pretty nice about, but there's others like, you know, guys, I love you, but why don't you sit tight and let me tell you all the ways you're screwing up?
Yeah.
You know, and
everything else.
Right. But there is a section in the New Testament, and other people are more versed, you know, like they would be able to tell you where it is and where it came from. But he said, you know, like I have heard of people, well, I follow Ananias, or I follow Peter, or I follow Paul, or whatever, you know, and they might be referring to, well, whichever one came and gave them the message first, or maybe they referred to like, well, my preacher is this, so I follow him. And Paul, you know, he knocks that off the table. He's like, you need to be following Christ. Yeah. You know, like don't follow me. And I bring that up. The same thing about the podcast. This isn't here for likes or follows or whatever. You know, we want people to watch this, but it's not about us. No. You know,
just a tool.
Basically, yes. As bad as I hate to admit it, yes.
And not in a mean, derogatory way.
No, it kind of is, and I'm fine with that. You know, because when you get right down to it, can you think of any circumstance or situation in your life where you have been just used
and abused?
Either way, both.
I mean,
you know, past relationships, family members, you know, that person that always calls, but only when they need something.
Speaking of family members, I feel like that family members will abuse you more than your actual.
A lot of times, yes.
Texas and O's.
Yes, you know. But so when you get down to it, if you was to think, and if you could list out, and I'm not asking, but if you could list out all the times where you have either been legitimately used or the circumstances were very similar to being used, or God using you, which, I mean, I'll pick God using me every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
I'll be the first one in line.
Absolutely. It's like, how can you use me? I'm volunteering, you know. You know, it's like, hey, you know, what was it? That Offspring song's like, hey, we like the abuse, you know. And, you know, when you get right down to it, that's what honestly we should strive for. Where was it in the Gospels? Jesus was talking about, the harvest is big, but the workers are few.
Yeah.
Send me.
We got enough.
Wasn't that also brought up in Isaiah?
Yeah.
Send me.
Yeah.
Don't pull a Jonah.
No.
God says, hey, I need you to go talk to them. And Jonah says, you know what, God, I don't even like them.
No.
It's like, no, you need to go tell them that you need to give them a warning. They've got judgment coming if they don't straighten up their ways. And Jonah's like, no, they've earned it. Let them have it. Like you don't want to be in that position. Stop, have you ever won an argument with God?
No.
Can you win an argument with God?
Fine.
But when you get right down to it, can you win an argument with God?
No, he's gonna convict you of something some way.
The only way, if you could even call it winning, I would call it losing, and losing severely.
If you think you won,
would be to completely turn away and reject every aspect of your belief system. And I know that there are people that are, let's just be nice and say stupid enough to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean that with as much love as the funny thing is, I got to tell on myself here.
Oh boy.
Well, and I'm willing to bet with what I'm fixing to say, you would probably agree with. It's kind of a man thing. If we're talking and I say, with all due respect, as a man, generally, that means I'm fixing to say something as nice as I possibly can.
Bless your heart.
Right. But if you emphasize it, with all due respect, and I do mean all due respect, if I clarify, you need to know at that point that there is no due respect coming.
No.
Like if I have to emphasize with all due, there's no respect.
No.
What
do they call that? What do they call it? When they getting ready to tell you something, and you got to sign this little letter or whatever.
Oh, it's like a disclaimer.
Yeah, it's a disclaimer. Yeah. All due respect, but here's the disclaimer.
Yeah. What was that other line from Game of Thrones? Father always told us that everything a person says before the word "but" doesn't count. And I'm like,
that makes sense.
It really does.
It could work.
Well, it could work, but.
What you did the other day that you're talking about? I interrupted you. The main card. Was it a main card?
Boy, I don't even remember now.
You done forgot.
I did. Yeah, I don't even remember. I have no idea. What was we talking about? Turned into Chicken Little. What was we talking about?
I done forgot. Well, you talking about getting off topic.
Oh yeah, I do that a lot.
But it's not really off topic. It's talking about, what I'm fixing to talk about is something to do with faith. Why is it that when something good happens, everybody's got to chew it up and spit it out?
Okay, you brought this up earlier.
Yeah.
I have an answer for you. One reason, and I know you're referring to, some of this aspect about Charlie Kirk, is there is a negativity where people are, well, he wasn't as good a person as you think he was, or he wasn't that, there's people that's trying to erode that memory. Okay. I would say a lot of that is because there is a negativeness in and of themselves. But getting to the root of the matter, go back to the garden.
Right.
Go back to the garden. I have heard somebody make the argument, and it stands logical, that, what were the terms of the garden? You are in paradise. don't eat from that tree.
Right.
That was it.
Don't eat the fruit.
Don't eat the fruit. But not just the fruit, from that specific tree. Everything else is yours.
Yeah.
Satan shows up.
Whispers in the ear.
Well, there is a deception there, absolutely. And you need to understand that half truths are lies.
Yes.
Because if you can't tell the whole truth, you're only telling the information to do a narrative.
Yeah, benefit yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what this person theorized, the serpent was able to get Eve not to focus on what she did have, but the one thing she didn't.
Yeah.
Now look at the world around us, and that is the majority of our existence. For believers, we thank God sometimes, probably not as much as we should, but we're constantly looking at what we don't have rather than being thankful for what we do. For non-believers, I really can't say that, because I don't want to point fingers and like, hey, y'all are fitting in this box here. But you can look at the world in, like I said, social media. Go to Walmart. Just talk to people. Everybody's focused on a negative. And it gets to be a competition. My negative is more negative than your negative. You ever hear people talking about like going to the doctor or their medications or, it's a competition.
Yeah.
Like, well, I got cut and, like they did a surgery and I've got 5 stitches. I'm like, well, mine took 7, and I was off work 3 months longer than you was. It becomes a pissing contest. Yeah.
I think what makes me mad the most about this whole situation is, they're so far left that they can't see what's actually going on. That he was shot, and that's a horrible thing. But look how many people are turning back to God because of this situation.
Well, that is a big problem on the left,
side.
And I'm going to try to word this delicately because I'm saying the left as a whole.
Yes.
I'm not speaking about every single individual because not everybody fits that mold.
Right.
All right. But there is so much, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that the right is perfect and all righteous and all angels, and I'm not saying
Neither
that.
are we.
Right. But when you look at the left, there is such a anti-God Jesus push that you can't deny it. And I will be honest, and I'm not saying this with any kind of hate or malice or anything like that. I don't understand, and call me stupid, fine. I don't understand how a person can call themselves a Bible-believing follower of Christ and sign off on a lot of the ideology of the political left. I don't understand how the two can coincide together.
Right.
Okay. Now, again, I'm not saying that with hate or malice. I'm saying I don't understand how that works. Okay. Now, I will say that, yes, there are some false teachings out there. There are some teachings that lean into certain political spheres that are not biblical. Okay. Some of that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. But, I'm just going to stop there on that because that is that's not even another podcast. That's a series. I can do that for weeks.
Well, I got another podcast that might ruffle some feathers.
That's what I do. Like that's most of my time on social media. I might be sharing something about the faith. I might be, like I said, I've done posts where, hey guys, I see an issue here. Here's my thoughts on it. Do with it what you will. But most of the rest of the time, I'm poking the bear. That's all I'm doing is poking the bear, and especially on either the religious or the political front.
Right.
I'm going to point out the hypocrisy. I'm going to. Now, I love things of irony. I can't resist pointing out ironies. But when you get into flat out lying, um, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the other day she's on an interview and they're talking about political violence and whatnot. And she says, I'm getting close to the quote. I don't remember it word for word, but she says, we have to stop pointing fingers and demonizing each other. Right now, most of it's coming from the right. And I'm like, what did you just say? You can't even stop yourself from doing it.
No.
And it's like this whole both sides argument. When you compare the way, and again, I'm not talking about every single individual. I'm talking about if you have a dividing line and you folks are on the left and you folks are on the right, the reaction from the right when things, be it like Charlie Kirk, we didn't want that. That is upsetting to us.
Yes.
Like there were some issues that went on during the pandemic that I would say are, constitutionally questionable.
Right.
Okay. But when things don't suit the right, there is a certain sort of reaction. Not every individual, but as a whole, fine. When you look at the left and when they're not getting their way, it is not the same reaction as you see on the right. A lot of this violence, a lot of these shooters, let's not forget all the cities tore up by riots. There has not been a right-wing riot, period.
Nope.
Now, you could say, well, that's not our cup of tea. You could make that excuse. I've heard people use the excuse, well, we have to go to work.
Yeah.
There might be some truth to that. All right. Also, we kind of have this, what would you call it? You don't poop where you eat.
Yes.
Why would I go destroy my own neighborhood to pitch a fit? Does that make any sense?
Stupid.
Wait,
am I allowed to say stupid?
You might as well. I said piss.
So something else I want to touch base on too.
Not really go ahead.
Base, but okay. So
are you going to say something to get me fired up?
Maybe, yeah, probably. So most of you may or may not know, my wife and I attend two different churches. We have a local church we attend with Chris. Then we have a church that we attend in Tennessee called Global Vision. Our pastor is Greg Locke. Somebody has said something along the lines of he preaches too much on Jerusalem and not enough on Christ.
I can't.
and I'm like, where have you been?
I can't speak on that because I'm not familiar with his lesson plan.
Well, the thing is, we are for Jerusalem. We stand behind him. We are for Jerusalem. We have, because that's the Holy Land.
Yes.
So
now I want to say this delicately. Yes, Jerusalem is the Holy Land. That is the holy city, and that will be the center of.
Actually, I said that wrong. Correct myself. I'm sorry. Israel.
Okay. That is where the delicate problem comes into play.
I said that wrong. My bad.
Because the nation of Israel, as it exists today, is not the nation of Israel as referred to in Scripture. The nation of Israel in Scripture, yes, there was a land boundary area, but it was a people of a tribe. The nation of Israel that exists today by treaties and, you know, that, what was it, 42, 46, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
That nation did not exist
Right.
in the time that these prophecies were written. So here's where I'm at with it, because there is the scripture that, you know, those that bless will be blessed and those that curse will be cursed. Now, I don't have a problem with the state nation of Israel. I know that they catch a lot of flack, especially with the Gaza and Palestine aspects.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say this any more politely. A nation has a right to defend itself from attacks.
Yeah.
Even if those attacks are coming from within its borders. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Now, the comment that I have made on like the Palestinian aspect, what is their slogan? You know, let me back up a little bit. Almost every time that there has been a conflict since the formation of the current Israeli state, almost every time that there is a conflict, Israel gives up land.
Right.
Okay, hold that thought. What is the chant of the Free Palestine movement? From the river to the sea.
Right. Yeah.
That is all of Israel.
Yeah.
You cannot negotiate with people that want your total country and annihilation, period. Now, you can blame Israel for the attacks, for whatever the case may be. They're not committing genocide on the aspect of, hey, we have this people group and we can't stand them. You cannot negotiate with people that want your complete and total annihilation, period.
Right.
That's, if you will talk to veterans who actually served on the ground in, say, Vietnam or Korea, you cannot, that's why we had such a hard time over there. These folks are more than willing to die.
Yep.
You can't negotiate with them. You can't make a deal with them. The only way you beat a people, and I don't care what area we're talking about, because there's a huge portion of what we might call the Muslim world that has the same feelings. The only way you negotiate with people that are more than happy to die for their cause is to speed up the process. You can't make a deal with them because they'll break the deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You can't make a treaty with them. What is Israel's, you know, when we look at the Palestine situation, what is Israel supposed to do? Walk away from their own country? Because that is the terms of Palestine,
Yeah.
from the river to the sea, period. I'm not saying that Israel needs to wipe them off the face of the earth. I'm not saying that. But tell me, what is Israel supposed to do under those circumstances? How do you negotiate that? Palestine wants the entire country.
Yeah.
Period. That's what they want. The problem they're going to have, even if Israel give it to them, guess who they're at war with now? The people in the Gaza Strip, Hamas or whatever.
Yeah.
The Islam nations that are constantly, you know, be it, Lebanon, or are they at peace with Lebanon?
I don't remember.
Jordan?
Maybe. I have to look it up.
But either way, let's say Iran.
Did you?
I am now. There has been war over that spot of property since Ishmael.
Yeah.
Okay? Every bit of it dates back to Abraham. You know, if you don't believe in the Bible, do a history search and see when it started.
Yep.
Period.
I just wanted to touch base. You know, Israel.
Well, and that's why I bring it up. I know I've gotten into a history lesson.
It's okay.
We have to understand now. Now, like I said, I support Israel as a state, as the current nation. I feel like no, I don't even like feel. Every country who is a sovereign nation has the right to defend itself from invaders, from attacks. I don't care if it's China. If they are being attacked unprovoked, they have a right to defend themselves. Period. So that's where I'm at on the Israel as a state. I think that the United States, because Israel is one of our closest allies, I have no problem helping them to a point. If there are certain lines that we don't like that they're going to cross, then we need to make that known. Like, hey, you cross these lines and we're going to have problems. But, it's like the same thing. Like if you was getting into a fight, I'd be like, dude, I'll back you up, but you don't get to cut them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that, like you have to do whatever it is you're going to do with honor. So do I think that the United States should back them blindly for whatever? No, I don't. As a nation. But as a believer, I do have compassion in my heart for the Israeli nation as a tribe, if that makes sense. Yeah. I really don't care what the government says. I'm talking about the people as a people. I have compassion for the people. And, you could say, well, I'm talking about Jews. No, I'm really not, because there's a lot of people who might be of the Jewish faith that are not of the Jewish race. And I don't even like the word race anymore.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is descendants of the 12 tribes of Jacob. Is that right? Jacob got his name changed to Israel?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. The descendants of the original 12 tribes, I have compassion in my heart for them, as the Israeli nation, as a people. And that's who the Bible was talking about. Those that bless you, I will bless. Those that curse you, I will curse. It simply wasn't, to my understanding, well, how could have it talked about the Israeli nation as it is today? Because the nation that exists today did not exist then.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But the people did. It'd be like running across the scripture. It's like, well, if you're all right to these people, we will be all right with you. And I automatically say, well, yeah, that was the United States of America. Well, the United States didn't exist at the time.
No.
So, like I said, there's certain aspects where, a little bit of historical knowledge does come into play. But at the same time, I don't want the nation of Israel obliterated either. And I don't think they should keep giving up all their land. I honestly, what was it? What do they call it? The 6-Day War, the 7-Day War? They got into a scuffle. I want to say it was like early 60s. And they actually took over the Temple Mount where the mosque is.
Yeah.
They occupied it. And I'm like, you should have blowed it up and never give the land back over. But that was part of the peace deal, is they retreated and give that spot back to the Arab nations. And I'm like, you're not going to be free of them, And yeah, had they blowed it up, they probably would have brought hellfire and brimstone down on the, you know what? They shouldn't have built a mosque there, is all I know. But that's the downside is, your three Abrahamic faiths are drawn to Jerusalem, especially Old Town Jerusalem. It's where the temple used to be. You have the Temple Mount. It's where Jesus was crucified. I really don't know the Islamic tie there. I think Muhammad said it was holy, but, and I'm not knocking it. I don't know. But no matter how you look at it, unless somebody does a whole lot of lying, Christians and Jews are not fighting over that land.
No.
Arabs are, or more specifically, Muslims are. So you have three faiths all drawn to the same, it's not even that big.
No.
To the same area, and one of them is constantly fighting over it. And the downside, and that's honestly what I try to tell people when, especially with those of the Muslim faith, and I don't hate Muslims, I don't. But there's a lot that we don't understand, but there's a lot that they don't understand.
Right.
The Arab world is still very tribal, like when we was over in Afghanistan, everything was what the Sunnis and the Shiites or Shiites, I don't remember how to pronounce it. Those were two different tribes.
Yeah.
And what over here in Western society, we are kind of, no, we're not kind of, we are very spoiled. But we're also unaware of a lot of things, because we'll look at a situation like that and like, well, if America wasn't over there sticking their nose in the things, then there wouldn't be war. You don't understand that area at all. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. Period. You are hungry. Belly says, talk to me.
I haven't done that in a while.
But
I promise I fed before I came.
Not enough.
Evidently. Well, we are going to start with Daniel next week.
Well, and that's where this was going.
Yeah.
We've talked at length about individual faith. Today's was more, other than me rambling, was more about the faith of those around us, or, better said, to be that kind of person for those that are around us.
Right.
But if we go back to Daniel, a lot of people are familiar with the furnace story. You had Daniel and you had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
We get to learn their real names.
Huh?
We get to learn their real names. Before they came there. Daniel. Right?
I think those were their Hebrew names. Now the Babylonians wanted them called something else.
I'm thinking another something else. My bad. Daniel, Hananiah, Michelle, Ezra.
Right.
Yeah, I'm thinking, okay. You call it Shadrach, Meshach. Okay, yeah, my bad.
But the thing about this story is, all throughout the book of Daniel, now his faith was tried, and on a personal level. Okay. Now I'm not going to get into a whole lot of that right now, but when it come time for the furnace, my understanding, I'd have to go back and look at it to freshen my memory, but my understanding is, when it was decreed that they're going into the furnace, they didn't get to change their minds.
No.
They were being thrown into the furnace, which was heated, 7 times its normal heat? That's my understanding. And, let's just say that part's not important right now, but right. They made the furnace hotter than they normally ran the furnace. And the whole incident came about because there was a decree that went out that said, for a period of time, you have to worship an image of, I don't remember if he was even a king at the time, or if he was just holding it in place of, I want to say it was Darius that was there, and he was holding it for Cyrus. But let's just say King Darius.
Right.
But they made this decree that, for this many days, any of your prayers have to be at the image of Darius, who will then present your prayers to the appropriate gods. And we don't know a whole lot about some of the other Hebrews that were in captivity in Babylon at the time, but we do know about Daniel. And they got turned in for praying to Yahweh.
Yeah.
Like they held their Hebrew teachings. They were old enough that they knew many aspects of the faith. They weren't like infants when they got, when all this happened. I want to say they were probably upper teenage, maybe lower 20s, something like that. So they knew what God had called them to do, what they were supposed to do as good Hebrews. Like you have to pray like this. You can't eat this kind of food. Like they knew Leviticus.
Yeah.
And, this decree was actually put out specifically to trap them. Okay. So, they refused to turn from worshiping God. They got thrown in the furnace. And honestly, did Daniel even go in the furnace? Because I want to say it was just Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
I don't think he did because he didn't want to change his name either.
Right.
Guess I'll find out.
We're going to have to get back into that, but it ties into the aspect that your friends matter.
Yes.
And the faith of your friends matter. The people that are around you, it matters. There are too many sayings about, what was it, like one rotten apple spoils the whole bunch and whatnot. Jesus, he could go wherever he wanted and talk to whoever. You're not going to corrupt Jesus.
No.
The problem is that a lot of us aren't that strong. And there are people that I have to watch how often I'm around them because they cuss. It's not even, like in normal language. Like they use cuss words as punctuation and then candy sprinkles. And if I'm around it very much, I'll start picking it up. So I have to watch that. And it's no different in any other setting. If you are the one lonely Christian, no matter how hard you're trying to do right, if every aspect of your being is surrounded by sin and sinners, and I don't mean normal people, I mean people that are actively choosing a sinful existence. Good luck is all I know, because it's more likely that that's going to wear off on you than you're going to wear off on them. Now there does come a point in time where that can flip. But most of the time, people that are choosing to walk in sin, they're going to move you out of the group because they don't want to quit.
Right.
It's really that simple.
Nervous.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. Either they don't see a problem with it, so they don't want to be fussed at. But there's also the aspect of, many of them will come at you with it feels like judgment. A lot of times that's your own dang guilty conscience. Yeah, it's not me or somebody else. It's you.
It's God convicting them.
And I've made that comment. I overheard some people talking at one point. Well, every time I go to church, I feel like somebody's judging me and this and that. And I was like, well, can you guarantee that it ain't you? Well, why would I feel like I'm judging me? Why would you feel like they're judging you? I'm like, you just said that you go to a church, and other than the people that shook your hand on your way through the door, nobody even spoke to or looked at you. Like, why would you feel judged? They're not paying any attention to you at all.
Isn't it crazy how that works? You go to church and you feel like the preacher's talking to you and only you.
Crazy? No. Annoying. That's what it is. But sometimes very useful. And I have actually asked pastors about that. Like, yeah, we had no idea. So I finally got to where I'd quit asking pastors about it, because it's a lot like a confession when you do that.
Yeah. So you talking about yourself? No.
But, you know, in the same aspect is when I bring up people on here, I, you know, other than like Maddow or Clinton or Charlie Kirk, you know, they're already public figures.
Yeah.
But like when we spoke about our friend earlier, that's the identity of the person is they are a friend that we went to school with because, you know, and I've brought up, you know, different aspects of, you know, like, well, maybe when I was dating this one, you know, that's all you need to know is that they're an ex. I'm not here to out anybody or condemn anybody or, you know, nothing like that. It's all anonymous. And, you know, like even when I used to make them post there on social media, I was like, don't, and I'd make footnotes in there. I'm like, if you feel like I'm talking to you, don't make a comment, you know, because every bit of this is worded for being anonymous.
Right.
I might not even be talking about you, but if you chime in there, that's like a, you know, hey, I'm guilty, you know. So I mean, it's one of them things where, you know, like I don't want to out anybody. I don't want to mess up somebody's privacy.
Right.
But no, I mean, like you brought up, there's so much negativity that's coming out about Kirk. And the thing about it is it's not even negativity about Kirk. It's just like they're throwing mud in that direction. Like, well, he was racist. I'm like,
forget about this. Leave him alone.
It is so amazing the number of white people that will call him racist and the number of black people that say, no, I couldn't find a problem.
No.
You know.
Like, let the guy rest in peace.
Well, they can't do that because he was a man of faith that believed in a traditional. Now, honestly, a lot other than having religious faith, a lot of his views were actually more moderate than severely right leaning.
Yeah.
You know, but he was a relatively young, successful man, and he could make logical arguments.
He can debate with
and that was the thing is there is a video. He's like, you have to stop and think. When I come to college campus, I'm here for maybe 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
These kids are here for 2 to 4 years. Why does the school throw such a fit about me being here? Because in 2 to 4 hours, I can undo 2 to 4 years of their teaching.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong.
No.
You know.
No.
But like I said, what he represented, a traditional family, that is a big no-no on the left.
Yeah.
You know, man in the house, one marriage, you take care of your kids, even homeschooling.
Yeah.
You know, he had some, like I said, and on a lot of things political, he did lean more moderate, but on the religious aspect, certain aspects moved him more conservative. But like I said, the image that he represented and the fact that he could make a logical argument, and it's not even one that, how would you really word it? It's not that he spoke well. He could make you challenge your beliefs.
Yes.
All right. And that is dangerous to a group of individuals that don't like to be challenged.
Right.
You know. So that, in my opinion, that's where a lot of that is coming from. They don't want him being a martyr, you know. And my opinion on that is if you didn't want him to be a martyr, you shouldn't have pulled the trigger.
Right.
Plain and simple. You know.
Well, this is a good night.
Yeah, I've blathered on the whole time.
That's okay. That's why God put us together. And not in a weird way.
Yeah, in this day and age, you better correct that. Hi.
Yeah. So next week we're going to start on Daniel. More than likely, the missus will be joining us. I'm not 100% sure yet. Maybe from here, maybe from home. We don't know yet. We like, and all also then what? Like I said a while ago, we're not looking for followers for us. We're looking for followers of Jesus.
Right. Yeah.
Like and subscribe to our page. We got a website too.
And then,
And if you subscribe to the web page, you'll get a weekly email with a daily devotion and something else. I forget what all else.
the missus is doing that.
Yes. I'm uploading the videos from every week. That she does everything else. It's nice having the help.
Yes.
And I guess we call her the help. I'm not 100% sure. She might choke me later.
Well, no. Don't forget that the biblical word God used, right?
Yeah, okay.
I don't know that I would refer to her as the help.
Yeah.
Saying that she does help is completely legitimate. I would not refer to her as the help.
She does quite a bit, and I chime in every once in a while. Yeah, that's good, babe. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Right.
But yeah, we were glad you were here tonight.
Waiting to see if the chat pops up. Like
Yeah.
you two SOBs.
I don't know if she's on there or not. I have only one person watching. We'll pray for everybody, and y'all can pray for us, and greatly appreciate it. And y'all have a good night, and God bless.
Peace.